Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Talk of the Devils, brought to you by Talk to the Devils. Oh Christ, I'm. It's gone. It's gone. Anyway, we're here. It's a late Sunday night, boys. I was saying backstage. I'm absolutely knackered, so apologies. Poor intro. I'm sure Wayne will have a little bit of a moan at me tomorrow, but we'll see. I hope you're all well. Obviously, a very good performance tonight. Very good performance. Lots of individual great performances as well. Obviously, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the disallowed a goal. We're kind of talking about that backstage. I feel like that exactly the same scenario happened today with Antonio, and his was given. And it would have kind of killed the game off, as we were saying. I hope you're all well. Get your comments in, get liking, get subscribing. Phil, I hope you're well, but it's been a little while since I've had you on. But how are you feeling after that?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Obviously, a great performance. I think tonight was just imperative that we got the 3 points after last week. Not going great at the Etihad, but yeah, I think a lot better today, more solid. Obviously, didn't start the game the way we would have wanted to, with conceding an early goal from a mistake from ourselves, but thought we bounced back really well. Showed some really good character, and I think we just dominated the game for large spells, as we've just said there. I think when it got to 2-1, I think we just needed that extra goal just to sort of kill off the game. As long as there was that, one goal deficit, Everton was sort of still in the game, even though they didn't really have, that much control. I think it was, a set piece or a ball into the box was where they looked most dangerous. But I think we dealt with, the majority of that pretty much all night. And as you say, I think there was some really good individual performances tonight. From players, especially who's sort of not being in the team. Thought Luke Shaw was brilliant. Came in and had a really good positive impact on the game. I thought Casemiro, we've just touched on that backstage. I think he had a bit of a mixed bag, but finding his feet a little bit more. Probably give a couple of sloppy passes away, which you probably don't expect from him. But on the flip side of that, I think he did a lot of good things tonight. Made the Ronaldo goal by pressing and winning the ball back and putting that ball through. So overall, it was a good performance, and the main thing was just to get the 3 points in and sort of start another little run, hopefully, in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. 700 goals for Ronaldo tonight. Club goals, that is. Absolutely astronomical numbers, really, in 946 games, I think he said, which is unbelievable. Obviously, 37 years old, still going relatively strong. Hopefully, we can see a bit more of that going forward. Thanks for your comments, Phil. Absolutely spot on. Jamie, good to see you, buddy. I hope you're well. And just give me your thoughts on how you're feeling right now and your sort of overall thoughts on the game.
It was an interesting evening. And I think hopefully what we've seen is that, like a lot of us said in the post-match after the derby, is that defeat at City wasn't the doom and gloom that everyone was making it out. It wasn't the end of times. We saw a very positive United side tonight. Granted, that Iwobi goal was a bit of a sucker punch early doors, but we played aggressive, we played progressive, it was fluid. And I think the football we played in the first half was some of the best that we've seen under Ten Hag so far. I agree with what Phil said then. I think Luke Shaw was fantastic tonight. The only thing that annoys me about that though is that why does Luke Shaw always need to have a competitor for that left back spot to perform the way he does? He's been dropped for Malacia, and we've now seen the Luke Shaw that we all know and love, but it's not consistent enough. If he ends up getting a good run of games in at left back, he'll get complacent again. And we've seen that time and time again. But all in all, I think we played well. Sorry, it was good to see Anthony back on the goal sheet. The first ever United player to score in his first 3 Premier League appearances. This man was supposedly just a. There you go. This man was supposedly just a little twirl merchant. I actually think we've underpaid for him, if I'm being honest. He's now outscored Mo Salah, and he's played 5 less games, so that's always a good stat, isn't it? But no, I think it was an interesting one. The games against Everton for the last decade have not been comfortable. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember the last time that we went to Goodison and had a comfortable game.
I was having this conversation the other night. I think the last time we played very well against Everton was when Cavani scored that brace, wasn't it? A couple of seasons ago. That was the last time I can remember where we sort of dominated, or at least did far better. But they've been a difficult side to play against, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think we dominated them tonight. Realistically, I think the scoreline flattered them a little bit. De Gea didn't really have much to do, but I was impressed by De Gea actively coming off his line, claiming crosses, interrupting the counter attacks. Yeah, so the only thing is that if that's not going to be a staple part of his, his diet as a goalkeeper and his bread and butter, then it's all well and good showing it here and there in certain games. But if he's not going to do it consistently, then don't tease us. Do you know what I mean? Don't give us that little bit of hope that we think, oh, maybe this is a different De Gea than we've had before, and then we'll play a game where he won't come out and claim a cross and it'll cost us. I'm not gonna lie, I did think as soon as Calvert-Lewin was warming up and I saw him coming on, I was just like, he's gonna get his big head on a James Garner cross and they're gonna make it 2-2 and we're gonna drop points here. Rashford then scored and it was obviously ruled out, and I thought even more Calvert-Lewin's going to get an header here. But we saw out the result, and that's something that we've struggled to do for years. We were shaky in the last few minutes, but at the end of the day, they threw everything forward. And you know what? We've all slagged him off. Credit to Frank Lampard. I think what he's done with that Everton team based on where they were last season. I think Onana's a very, very, very good centre mid. I think converting Iwobi and playing him in that sort of box-to-box role, I think has worked wonders as well. And I only found out tonight, and apparently it's common knowledge, I did not know that JJ Okocha was Alex Iwobi's uncle.
I didn't know that, actually. That was I was astounded by that when I heard that from the commentary as well. But here we are. We'll be able to sleep well tonight knowing that. So we were actually just chuckling in the background, actually. 12 Merchant. Not heard that before, but thank you for that analogy, Jamie, and we'll be calling in that one. So, listen, talking about Anthony, I'll come to you in a second, Freddie. Sorry, buddy. He's not had the best of performances so far. It's sort of... I wanted him to take on a few more players, but he's scored 3 in 3. And you can't ask for any more. I think he's had a really good start and obviously not really come out of second gear yet, has he? Freddie, I hope you're doing well, my man. Thanks for coming on. And how you feeling, bro?
Yeah, good, thank you. I think, like Phil mentioned, we just needed to get the 3 points under our belt, especially after the last league outing against City. It's sort of like a mini start to the season again. First 2 games of the season, we were poor, and then we won Liverpool, and that was a catalyst for a little bit of a run. So hopefully that continues in the next few weeks too, given we've got a busy October. But it was a good win, but it wasn't the most convincing win. And I think the game sort of went how most people thought it would before we actually played. Everton were going to sit back. We were going to control the game, which I thought we did very well actually in large parts. However, our 2 goals came on the counter, and I thought Everton were going to be the one who would counter us. So it was a bit of a mixed bag tactically, but I think Ten Hag got it pretty spot on.
Prior to this game, they'd only conceded 7, also had only scored 7. So you're absolutely right. I think I was expecting them to be a little bit more on it from that perspective. And
the 7 is the...
That way, was it?
No, and that's the least. That was the least in the league as well. So they're obviously, the Connor Cody, Tarkowski axis with Onana and Idrissa Gueye is, you can see what Frank Lampard's gone for. Brilliant signing. So I think the main concern was, are we going to be able to break them down? And I think the most important thing today was our first goal straight after they scored. That just didn't allow them to fully sit in. They had to open up a bit. They had to play on the counter, and that worked to our benefit. I think Anthony had, 3 goals in 3 games. You can't really ask for more, really, from a new signing, as well as that coming against Arsenal, City, and Everton, like I said, who conceded the least in the league up until today. So, overall a very good game. Good to see Ronaldo get his 700th goal as well. I don't think he was a fantastic performance. I think his decision making was quite poor at times, but
I agree,
hopefully,
good finish.
Hopefully that's
good finish.
Oh, very good finish. We sort of saw the best and worst of Casemiro in that split second, didn't we? He gave the ball away and then brilliant tackle and assist. There's a lot of positives. I'm just very happy we got through the last 10 minutes, because as soon as James Garner and Calvert-Lewin came on, as Jamie alluded to, I think last season that would have been, we'd have finished this game a draw, whereas this season we've managed to come away with the 3 points. So lots of positives to take away, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely right. Lots of positives indeed. Helly in the comments here. Great to have you with us. Great performance. Sure, fabulous. Casemiro improving big time as the match went on. Rashford, my man of the match. Ridiculous. an inconsistent handball call. We will talk about that. I don't want to sort of stick on that. I want to talk about the positives tonight, but a little bit frustrating for me. And obviously you want Rashford. He's very much a confidence player, and that won't affect him, but you want him to continue scoring goals, right? Obviously she's off to bed, sleep well, and thanks for catching us at the beginning. At least watch it tomorrow. So talking about the Rashford thing, I don't want to stick on it too long. As I said, Antonio had a goal today, exactly the same scenario, handballed it twice, and that was allowed to continue. Do you think it was a little bit hard done by? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, it was stupid. Absolutely stupid. I think the problem is that the issue with VAR is not the technology, it is the implementation of the people that are watching the footage. And you can have the most accurate technology in the world, but at the end of the day, if the decision is made by a human, there is still room for human error. Like we've literally seen today.
People are fallible, aren't they?
Yeah, massively. So the thing is, if VAR is not there to correct clear and obvious errors, which that Rashford handball was not, like in the slightest. He didn't gain an advantage from the ball accidentally hitting, his upper arm. That ball hits anywhere off his body, and he's still going to retain the possession. So my problem is that if you're going to implement a technology system and a process that is still open to interpretation and still open to human errors, then it's not going to serve the purpose. We've seen today. Liverpool denied a penalty, which, to be fair, was probably a stonewall penalty for the handball on Gabriel. And they have far too many Gabriels in that side, man. Stresses me out.
We got too many Antonys.
Antonys, yeah. Mikel Antonio's handball. I also agree, though, that probably wasn't really a handball that much. It probably was by the rules, but at the end of the day, I can see why a referee would go, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, let him go. That Rashford one today was one of the worst decisions I've seen so far this season, and that's saying something because we've already had some howlers. And the problem is that it's the inconsistency. So if that Antonio one had been chalked off today, I think it was because I think that was in the build-up for the Skamaka goal, wasn't it? If that had been chalked off and then Rashford's was chalked off, you can at least sit there and go, at least they were consistent today. The problem with VAR week in, week out is that people are not consistent, and we end up with these ridiculous decisions that just don't make any sense. And it just calls for, it creates more credence for this idea that referees should come out, VAR should have to come out and explain their decisions in a post-match interview, because I would like to hear, I don't even know who our VAR was today, but I would like to hear what they have to say about, here's why we suggested that goal be chalked off, because it's absolute nonsense. But luckily, Rashford is in good form at the minute, so it's not like he's been denied the goal that might see him kick on and get a few more. But again, VAR just continues to hit new depths, and we wonder why English referees as well don't go to major European championships. We're going to see none at the World Cup. We didn't see any at the Euros, and we won't see any. Marc Clattenburg was the last one, and he's doing sidemen football games.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me, the consistency. I don't think anyone would have any. I know it's obviously clear and obvious and all that, and there are some sort of very grey areas, but I think if there was a bit more consistency, it'd be a lot harder for us to get frustrated with it. But, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. 3 points. A big 3 points today. And we should hopefully kick on from this, as we said. Just come to a few comments after the game. Bruno Fernandes on Anthony. He's an amazing player. We knew the qualities he has. We're really happy for him, but we want more from him. Obviously, that hopefully spring him into life a bit more and get some more consistency, more goals perhaps. He also goes on to say this is what it's about, togetherness, make the best for the team. We conceded a goal from nothing, but we played really well in the first half. In the last 20 minutes of the second half, we could do better, but good to get back on a winning track. We want to show this spirit and togetherness. This is what made us win 4 games in a row and get this win. Anything that might stand out to you there, Phil? And then we'll come on to Casemiro in a moment.
Yeah, I just think obviously after the early setback, we've seen it in previous games where, especially the Brentford game, where we've completely capitulated and crumbled. Whereas I think now we're in a far better place where, even though, the early goal for Everton was a big setback and not an ideal start, I think we didn't panic and we looked like we still sort of had the main control of the game, and obviously to score an earlier goal to not give them time to sort of sit on that and sort of get themselves into the game a little bit was ideal. I think that's what sort of gave us that impetus and sort of enabled us to sort of, kick on and sort of be the better side for the majority of the game. I think obviously Martial going off and Cristiano coming on, and him getting that goal just sort of before half time was ideal. And I think, a special mention to him from me, because I think as a centre forward myself, you go through spells and you go through games sometimes where, things aren't falling for you. He's been out of the team. He's had a hard time with things that have happened off the field. There's a lot of pressure on him anyway, regardless of, whether he's in the team or whether he's not. And sort of to come on, and the way he reacted and took that goal today was brilliant. And I think that'll do his confidence a world of good. He finished that, like the player he is. He was just cool as ice, and he just slotted that in. And I think that was a massive boost for everyone, really, because I think, when Ronaldo's in the camp and he's happy and he's playing well, I think it'll sort of rub off well on all the rest of the team. And for me, we've said that Anthony, 3 goals in 3 games. Yeah, he's not probably hit the heights that we know he's capable of quite yet, but as we said, he can't really do much more in terms of his goal to game ratio, and he's working hard, probably not getting the amount of crosses and all that kind of thing quite yet. But I think for me, he's going to be, one that's going to be, improving on a weekly basis, and he looks the type of player that we need. And for me, Casemiro, we've said there he's done some really good things today, some really poor things on the flip side of that. But again, he's somebody who I think once he finds his feet a little bit more, and he gets up to speed with the pace of the English game, he'll be a massive bonus for us, because I think for the goal, he gave the ball away, but then that reaction, not to, just give it up, and, he won the ball back straight away. Good positive reaction. And, that was where the goal came from inevitably.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. We've got another former Red in the comments, Lee. Good to have you with us, buddy. Martinez quality again to first name on the team sheet for me now. I think he's been excellent this season. Really has kind of stepped up after a difficult first couple of games, and has sort of kind of raised that bar now to what a defender should be doing week in, week out. He's been terrific, and very, very happy with him. Happy with all of them, really. Great finish by Ronaldo. So really, really pleased for him. And you know what? I said a couple of days ago that on the reaction on Thursday, Ronaldo actually played very, very well on Thursday. He sort of created a lot of spaces for himself, and it was just unfortunate he didn't maybe score 2 or 3, and he just needed to maybe get that goal today to really kind of put his imprint back and get into form. And he hasn't had a lot of minutes this season, but well taken finish. And Casemiro, bit of an odd one today. Obviously, master of his own downfall, especially for the first goal. Lost the ball, regained it back, assisted Ronaldo. Probably should have scored a header. I couldn't believe that didn't go in, to be honest with you. But what did you make of his performance today, Jamie? Bearing in mind, 82 minutes prior to this game in the Premier League, still needs to be embedded, I think.
Yeah, I think I said when he signed that it might take a while for him to get used to the pace of the Premier League. He's come from a midfield 3 that was arguably the best midfield 3 in the world, with Kroos and Modric next to him. And he had all the time in the world sort of on the ball. But the thing is that the elements of him and his technical attributes that are probably the reason we went after him, they're the things that don't necessarily need time to pick up. So we saw today, like we've all said, that we saw the best and worst. Proper Jekyll and Hyde performance today from Casemiro is that he was dawdling on the ball. So we got caught in possession a couple of times. We've seen him do that in the games that he has featured for United so far this season. There's been a few times where he's been nipped when he's just taken that little bit too long to pick up a pass or whatever he's doing. But then at the same time, his disruption and the way he intercepts the ball and gets us back on the front foot is very good. So I think today's a good performance for him to kick on off. At the end of the day, he got an assist. And he was given man of the match, which I thought was a bit bizarre. I thought Luke Shaw was there to give the award to. I think Rashford again was very good. So there's a few other players around him that maybe deserved the man of the match award, but for his first Premier League start in it, I'm sure it is. it's the most minutes in a game he's had for us so far. I think there's probably more positives than there are negatives. He will get up to speed. There was at one point where he was bodied by Onana, and players like Casemiro, he won't like that. Do you know what I mean? Like some young lads just running to the side of him, absolutely sent him flying. So I imagine he'll stick extra hours in the gym or whatever, and we might see him, having a few little scans before he takes the ball, which he might not have needed to do at Real Madrid. He's still an elite centre midfielder, do you know what I mean? And he's still an elite defensive midfielder, which is what we've been crying out for years.
For a long time.
And his price tag is always going to be used as a stick to beat him. That's not his fault. He didn't request that price tag. We paid it. So if anything, the fault lies with us if he doesn't turn out. But I still think there's a very good player in there. We saw that. He can break the lines. He can disrupt play. And he's quite forward thinking, and he's quick to get us on the position, but on the front foot. Sorry, but one of the best things about it is we can see that Erik ten Hag really does play this whole thing of like risk and reward team selection. So if you have a poor performance, you get hooked. It's as simple as that. Scott McTominay was absolutely shambolic. Yeah, McTominay was shambolic against City, and we said in the reaction straight after that, we said we'd imagine we see Casemiro starting against Everton. We've seen Casemiro start against Everton. McTominay came on, a bit of a cameo at the end. But the good thing is that means that Scott McTominay sat there and you saw him. Yeah, granted, he got booked about 30 seconds after coming on, but McTominay wants his place back. So in that brief cameo that he gets given, he thinks, right, I need to show that I'm still up for this and I'm ready to go. And I think that's something that we've maybe lacked and we've missed over the last couple of years, is that there were players that were playing that you're like, how are you still getting onto that team sheet? You either need a break, you need to come back and earn your place, whatever. And Ten Hag clearly isn't afraid to hook people after a poor performance. So, we saw it with Sancho. Sancho was obviously omitted today, which was an interesting one. And hopefully that's something that will help spur him on.
I thought it was expected. I think he's been really poor last few games. And needed time out, I think. So I think it was expectant for me, and he'll be back.
Yeah, of course he will. But yeah, so just to take it back to the original point, I think Casemiro, a lot of people were booting off that he wasn't, in the starting 11. And I think Ten Hag has now showed why. I don't think he was ready to come straight into the starting 11 because of the pace and the physicality of the Premier League. We saw a couple of glimpses of his naivety in this game tonight. That was a pretty tough midfield to come up against, to be fair. You've got Onana in there who is, he's dominant. He's a powerhouse. He's very good. He's quite technical as well, which you don't usually get sort of all three mixed in. Idrissa Gueye, we always knew that he was a very, very, very good centre midfielder. And then Iwobi seems to be having this absolute remontada of his life. The change of positions working wonders. And Casemiro seemed to do well with it. He dealt with it other than some scares. So team sheet justified. The decision to keep him out justified. And it'll probably be the starting number 6 moving forward in our Premier League games from now on, I imagine, until he has a stinker and then McTominay comes back in.
Gets hooked. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's a good problem to have, isn't it? You've got
absolutely
numbers, not necessarily the quality numbers, but
no one bats an eyelid when it's City. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one bats an eyelid when City have got, Rodri, Gundogan, Bernardo, De Bruyne, Grealish, like all these midfielders who are rotating on a constant basis. Yet the second that we weren't starting Casemiro, everyone's going, hang on.
I know.
Why is he not playing? And it's just like,
that does frustrate me.
So yeah,
and we all get sort of hooked into it as well, don't we? I mean, it's difficult not to when you're hearing lots of outlets saying the same thing. It's difficult not to think, there might be. Do you know what I mean? It's so difficult, but you're absolutely right. It's wrong, absolutely. You wanted to come in, Freddie, about Casemiro.
Yeah, I just thought it was a very interesting game for him. He definitely grew into the game. Obviously, it was, like you mentioned, it was his first start. He probably experienced his most minutes today, or doubled his minutes today than he had coming on in previous cameos in the league. I think you saw the big benefits. I mean, he's our only natural defensive midfielder or defensively minded midfielder, and you actually saw the benefit of Eriksen and Bruno pushing forward as well. I mean, Eriksen's had a lot of criticism, especially after the Manchester City game, about his defensive capabilities. I think you didn't see as much of him having to do that. And as a unit, we benefited from that too. We just looked more structurally better set up effectively. I thought it was also very interesting. At times we sort of went into a back 3 with Shaw dropping in with the 2 centre backs, and it allowed Dalot to push further forward, so we could effectively overload the midfield, and then Casemiro is offering additional protection in case of a Gordon Demarai Gray counter. So he's definitely offering something very different from a tactical standpoint that probably McTominay wasn't able to offer, or Ten Hag didn't feel that he was able to offer. But I think this was also a very good game for him to come into from the start, given how poor Everton probably are in the attacking department for various reasons, injuries, etc. So, yeah, I think we're probably going to see a lot more of him now. It was inevitable that he was going to come in. It was just a matter of when. And it was equally, McTominay's had a very, very good start to the season. No one played well against City. So, it's difficult to criticise individual players, but I think this was the game for Casemiro. I would personally wouldn't have given him man of the match either. But I think for the season and moving forward, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the next game now in the league, and this will be the emergence of him in the starting 11. So, yeah, very good game overall, and it offers something very different to our midfield that we haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Comments about Martial in the comments. I was going to move on to him shortly, actually. 3 days ago, there was a streamer that argued that my comment, Martial will get injured again if he starts. Let's keep him as a super sub, so small chance of injury. And they said Martial will not be injured. I'm not quite sure if it was on here for sure. I don't think anyone said that, but maybe I'm wrong. But I was going to talk about Martial. Erik ten Hag has said about it. It was something different. Is a problem with his back. So I think there was worries about his hip or something prior to the game, and obviously he'd come back from a different injury entirely. Is that a concern, Phil? I think Rio Ferdinand mentioned it tonight. They never used to sort of really play a game where they didn't have some sort of discomfort, perhaps. But it seems to happen more. Maybe we're just more aware of it. Who knows? But is that an issue with Martial? We've seen how much he can be important to teams, particularly with Ronaldo. I think he's a very good link-up man. And we saw some really great glimpses of him again tonight, but obviously had to come off to make way from Ronaldo.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a problem, as you just said. I think, in pre-season he looked really sharp. He looked like he had the sort of fire in his belly. He wanted to come back and prove a point. But again, it's sort of the same old story with Martial. He's injury prone. And we can't seem to keep him in the team for sort of long enough to get the best out of him. And as you say, with the options that we've got and the heavy schedule that we've got in terms of, players, quick turnarounds, he would have been, great to have him available. But unfortunately, he's pulled out tonight again with a back injury. You've just said. Hopefully it's not going to be a long one, but again, it's one of them with him. He's you can't rely on him, and I think that's the biggest problem that we've had with him for many years. No doubt he's got the quality, and we've seen glimpses of absolute brilliance of him over the years. But if you look as a manager, if you're looking at your squad and you're saying, right, I want to hang my hat on Anthony Martial, you can't do it because he's probably only going to play a third or a half of the season. And as you say, obviously Ronaldo being 37, he's not going to be able to play, every game, every week. So it's going to be, it's going to be a testing time now for the sort of forward players, and we might have to see maybe Marcus Rashford do a little stint down the middle at some point, just to sort of give Ronaldo a bit of a rest if it's going to be a long-term injury for Martial. I mean, I do feel sorry for the lad because I think, I don't think he's doing it on purpose, or I don't think he's one of these who just is ducking it, and I agree with Rio. I mean, I've done it myself. Sometimes you're never 100% fully fit. You're just playing sometimes with knocks. You're playing sometimes when you're nowhere near 100%, but you just want to be on the pitch. You don't want to let your teammates down. You want to do it because you feel like you can offer something. And I do feel as though some of these modern day footballers haven't got the same mentality. Let's just say that some of the old school players would have had. So it's a difficult one. But as I say, I think don't want to sort of discredit Martial. I think he's done really well this season. I think when he's played, he's looked lively. He's scored goals, especially.
Got the assist today for Anthony as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm hoping that it's only a short-term injury and we can see, a little run of games for him, because I think he will be a big player when he does get himself fully up to speed. And as I say, we are going to need him with the backlog of games that we're going to have, especially, in the next couple of weeks and sort of after the World Cup. It's going to be, fast and furious.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And would any of you expect, I know it's Man United, not sure what to expect in the windows, but would any of you expect us to maybe dip into the market for a striker in January? With Ronaldo not having many minutes, obviously 37, not scoring as many goals this season, probably due to the minutes. Martial obviously being injured. Would any of you expect maybe a dip into the market in January?
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I think unless we have an injury crisis in that area and Ronaldo leaves, I can't see us going for anyone. Or if a priority target becomes available, which is very unlikely in that window, especially in the striking department. Very, very unlikely. The Cody Gakpo has been mentioned recently. He's a potential.
23, 24, I think, goal contributions, as many as Haaland this season.
Yeah, and I think he was a genuine target this summer as well. So, and a strong possibility of him going in January, with rumours that he's agreed personal terms with Leeds.
I saw that 30 million as well. I am amazed that United aren't trying to do something there, especially with Eric Ten Hag knowing him so well. Really surprised.
Exactly. Look, if Ten Hag wants him and he's available, I would fully expect the board to sanction that deal. However, if there's any other strikers, Victor Osimhen was another one mentioned. Those type of deals don't happen in January. So, it depends on the person, but it's very, very unlikely to sign a top striker in the January window. But yeah, we can hope. It all depends on Ronaldo as well. If Ronaldo stays or if he goes in January, I think that might have a big sway on things.
I think that's a big possibility. That's why I mentioned it really more than anything, not just his age. Mm-hmm. I think that I think it was very clear that he wanted to probably leave in the summer, and I think it could be very likely that he could leave in January with Anthony Martial's problems. Could be one to maybe look out for. But United don't tend to do the business in January, do they? Very rarely. So we'll have to wait and see. Just to go on what you said, Jamie, must be watching you. Out Ten Hag, we saw during the game how important he is. Casemiro, he's composed, winning a lot of balls, winning also the ball for the goal for Cristiano. Good performance, almost like for like, wasn't it? Hey, but there you go.
If only I was bald, we'd be the same man.
Hey, hang on a sec, yeah. Yeah, exactly the same. So yeah, Luke Shaw then obviously had some time out. Malacia, I think, has warranted his place. I'm a massive fan of Malacia. I think he's obviously been quite poor last two games, but Luke Shaw came in and was excellent today. And you always know Luke's going to have a great game when he seems to have that sort of intricate relationship with Rashford. Obviously, Rashford's firing at the minute, and they were both great today. I thought, Rashford relatively good at least, but yeah. Jamie, how do you think Shaw did today? Man of the match for you instead of Casemiro?
Yeah, probably. I don't know whether that's a bit of a left field suggestion or whether it's a popular opinion. I don't know, but from everything that I watched, I think he was probably our most consistent and our best player throughout the game. Again, not to take anything away from Casemiro from everything that I said before, but what was nice to see with Shaw was that almost telepathy with his winger. There was a lot of times where there'd be a 50-50 ball between him and the winger, and it was almost as if that Marcus would know that Luke Shaw's going to grab that, and he did. And there was the overlap. Rashford would provide him with sort of like the undercut pass, or he could send it into the box, and he was utilising a lot of the tricks in the arsenal that we've seen Luke Shaw develop over the years at United. And it was nice to see it all sort of come together in one game. I don't think they really had much of a sniff down their right side, down our defensive left side.
Yeah, absolutely right.
He seemed to have it locked off quite well, but it's one of those. It's almost a bittersweet sort of feeling, because as good as Luke Shaw was tonight, you just know that chances are it's not going to be consistent. he's not going to go into the next game with that sort of fire in his belly. I really hope I'm wrong. The problem is that he's been at United now for coming on 9 years. And apart from, he had that run with Memphis. We've spoken about this many a times on this podcast. He had that run with Memphis under Van Gaal just before Luke broke his leg, and then Memphis's form dropped. And obviously Luke Shaw came back and was never really the same. So every time he performs well, in the back of my mind, I'm going, but can you be consistent? And there clearly is that player in there. We see it every time he puts on an England shirt. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's an attacking left back. He's very good at what he does. There were shouts for him at one point last season. Was it last season? All the recent seasons have blurred into one, but there was a point where he was arguably the best left back in the Premier League. In terms of the numbers he was putting up, his work ethic, and he was very good. And then he's one of those that he seems to, if he has a little knock or he has one bad game, his confidence drops. And I really hope that doesn't happen. And I hope that Malacia can provide him with some positive competition, and the two of them can fight for it and develop, a really good relationship where they both want that left back spot. We've seen that United over the last decade. We always talk about that since Fergie went. We perform our best when there are some healthy rivalries amongst our players and amongst the squad. We saw it with Rashford and Martial that season, where they were competing to be our top scorer, and they were both absolutely smashing it. We see it when we have good midfielders that want to, when we have 5 or 6 decent midfielders that are all competing for the same 2 or 3 spots. Healthy competition seems to help us thrive. We saw it under Van Gaal. We had a plethora of attackers that all wanted to get into the starting 11, and we seem to be playing decent football. So hopefully this is the key to it. And I think he was very good tonight. He excelled in his attacking duties at times, and he was very solid defensively. Usually you have to sacrifice one or the other. And we've seen it with the greatest right back who ever lived, supposedly, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Every time that man goes forward, Liverpool concede. And we've said it before, and this is not a place to talk about it, but that man cannot defend, right? He's a phenomenal attacker, cannot defend.
Found out
Luke Shaw...
Today.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, the guy's been at fault for about 90% of Liverpool's goals that they conceded this season. But anyway, but Shaw seems to balance that quite nicely. When he's on it, the guy can attack well and also defend well. A bit like Reece James. Do you know what I mean? Like, Reece James arguably has probably been the best right back in the league this season because he has that right balance of attacking well but defending well. Your right back and your fullbacks in general are there to defend. They're there to prevent you from conceding down your channels.
First and foremost, yeah.
Yeah, the attacking thing is a benefit. The likes of Dani Alves, Roberto Carlos, and people like that, really help to popularise this idea of an attacking fullback. And I'm guessing there's obviously further historical examples of fullbacks, but they're the 2 earliest ones I can really remember. And Luke Shaw balances it well. We had the whole Shawberto Carlos thing. And hopefully this is the start of those comparisons coming back. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's a very good footballer.
I love that. It did make me chuckle.
Yeah, he's a good footballer when he wants to be. Do you know what I mean? But the key term there being when he wants to be, and I want to see that being all the time. He gets a bit stroppy. We know that he's had his weight issues. I'm not going to sit here though, because what gives me the right as a punter and as a fan that watches football to go, oh yeah, you're looking a bit out of shape. That man's in better shape than I've ever been in my life. So all these people on Twitter go, oh, he's had a few too many McDonald's. It's like, bro, shut up. Like, the guy's still in good shape. But you know what I mean? Like, he seems to have those bits throughout the season where everyone's a bit like, oh, is he as committed as he should be? So man, the guys might have a different like body composition than other people. But I want to see him doing well. He looks lean. He looks good. He looks committed. And hopefully this is a springboard for him to kick on. And again, it's an example of Ten Hag doing his whole play well, you'll be rewarded, play rubbish, and you'll be hooked. Malacia has been great the games that he's played. Been poor the last 2. So I'm not... But sorry, in the private chat, Freddie's just put Shaw's also a twirl, no, different type. That's a very, very, very good comment. Twirl's also a phenomenal chocolate bar. It's all right, it's a good comment.
You threw him off there, I tell you.
So Malacia's been poor the last couple of games. Does not mean that he's a bad footballer, but Ten Hag has gone, look, I'm going to put Shaw in because he's ready to go. He's chomping at the bit. And it'll happen again. Like we said with Casemiro and McTominay, Shaw might maybe have a couple of good games, and then he'll have a stinker. Malacia will be there, ready to come in and slot straight in.
Do you know what? Sorry, the thing about Shaw is it's a mentality thing. I think he's got all the talent. Is he 25, 26? He feels like he should be a lot older than that. I think with Shaw, and I think if I'm not wrong, I think Pochettino and Roy Hodgson have said it as his previous managers in the past. They've just said effectively he's something along the lines of
27.
27. That's nothing considering how long he's been at the club. He's very good at getting to the right levels, but he struggles in staying at that level. That seems to be the problem with him. When he's got, like Jamie mentioned, a competitor, like he will fluctuate and he will put in the work. But when he doesn't establish himself as the first team left back on that consistent basis, and that seems to be the problem. It could also be. There's also some external factors. I mean, Martinez being his sort of left centre back partner, he seems to be emerging as a leader in the squad. So that could be hugely beneficial to the fullbacks or the left back on this occasion. And also even Casemiro. I mean, today there were, the lovely triangles between Shaw, Rashford and Casemiro at times, and they were just playing their way out from the back superbly.
Ten hard ball. Love those triangles. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah. So I mean, some of it's down to the player, some of it's also down to external factors, just giving him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, look, we need a good Luke Shaw if we want to be back to the top effectively. We need him to perform, and hopefully he can stay there. He's looking fitter today. Like Jamie said, he's got the defensive part of his game right. He got the offensive part of his game right. Maybe that's to do with his link-up play with Rashford on the left. I'm not too sure, but yeah, very good game. I personally would have been a man of the match as well. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I agree with what you both said. Really, a year and a half ago, he was absolutely brilliant for the majority of the season, and we all know he's got it in him, gets slated left, right, and centre after that. But just want to see that bit more, and hopefully with the competition from last year, he will do that. But yeah, excellent game from him. We're going to move on to ratings now. And what we'll do is we'll switch out Martial. Unfortunately, came off before half time for Ronaldo, so we'll be rating him instead. Just lots of chat going on in the background. Right, David De Gea. Phil, come to you first, buddy. We spoke about him earlier. Sweeper, keeper. Obviously, we enjoyed seeing that. Probably on the edge of our seats, worried about whether he's going to claim it or something, but he did. He did very well. Made some great saves. But what would you score him today out of 10?
Yeah, I think obviously coming out for them balls, something that he's struggled with in the past. I don't think he probably could have done much with the first goal. I think he was blindsided a little bit by the defender, and it was, one of them. I think, Iwobi has that shot probably, 100 times. He probably only scores one or two. So it was one of them. But I think he was pretty solid. Didn't really have much to do in the game. But when he was called upon, he was there, and he sort of... was a bit more of a presence, which, was good to see. So I'm going to give him a 7.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. I think it's absolutely spot on. Really good performance today. I tell you what, just on the opposite number, Pickford has got an absolute leap on him, isn't he? For the corners at the end. I couldn't believe to the heights he was getting to. But
he won the header, didn't he? At one point.
I know. I
think so. Yeah, it looked like he did, and Varane actually brilliant, header.
Good point about Varane. Yeah, excellent defending, but he came on. So obviously he's hopefully ready to come back and have that formidable defensive partnership. Well, up until last weekend, but we ignore that. And hopefully we'll see them two back in contention next week. Lindelof, no discredit to him. I thought actually played pretty well today. And looked a little bit shaky midweek, but played very well today. And obviously good to see him back. Moving on to Dallo, I was backstage. We haven't really spoken about him too much, but I was very critical of him today. I think he gave the ball away so many times. And obviously Aaron Wan-Bissaka being injured, he's got no competition. I'm not saying, well, you do need that kind of competition, but he's got no one sort of breathing down his neck, and he did get caught out a lot today. But I'll give this one to Jamie.
Yeah, I think he was our worst player on the pitch. I think there was
100%.
He was nervous. And whenever Dalot gets loads of praise, again, I always read it and I'm like, but this is Diogo Dalot that we're talking about. Like, he is inconsistent. Like, I understand that he probably is at the minute our best functional right back. I am a big Wan-Bissaka fan. I always have been, but I understand that he's not been good enough recently. When he's last played and stuff. 'Cause I know he's injured. But I just think that sometimes, like, he frustrates me, Dalot. Like, there was a couple of times today that he played some good balls. He was forward thinking and he broke the lines quite well, but he was poor defensively. He was poor in transition. He dawdled, and it was just far too similar to the Dalot performances that used to really frustrate me. So yeah, I think he was our worst player on the pitch. I'm going to give him a 4, only because we won. If we'd have drawn, he'd have got a 1.
That is quite the contrast. I can't disagree with it. He was really poor. You made a very good point earlier, Fred. Shaw tucking in, which was allowing Dalot to get forward, and that's where we see the best out of him. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But he was misplacing so many. I remember in the first half in particular, he misplaced 2 or 3, and I was getting so frustrated because we looked like we were kind of building a bit of momentum, sort of, making things look like we could get somewhere with it. And but there you go. Moving on to Lindelof then, Freddie.
I'd give him a 6. He did a solid job, but nothing out of the ordinary. Just pretty much as expected. Again, for Lindelof, it's just a matter of getting minutes under his belt. He's not played much this season, and forming that relationship with Martinez when Varane is unavailable. So it was a much better performance than midweek, much more solid. But equally, I don't think Everton offered much in the attacking department. I don't think Mope. Yeah, I don't think Mope had a shot. I don't think any of the wide players. I don't remember.
I was worried about Mope. I thought he loves to score against us, doesn't he? And I was a bit concerned that he might get one of those. But yeah, nothing. Yeah, other than that mistake that Casemiro made and the goal, obviously, they didn't really have it, apart from maybe the last 5 minutes. I was a bit concerned, but we defended well, didn't we? So
we did, yeah. Yes, solid 6 out of 10 for Lindelof.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. Moving on to Martinez then, probably other than Eriksen, my favourite signing of the summer. Phil, Martinez, for you.
Yeah, pretty similar to Freddie, to be honest. I think, kept Mope quite quiet. They didn't really have that many shots. I think the only trouble was sort of in the latter stages, really, when the balls were going into the box other than the goal. So I'm just going to say 7. I think he probably had a little bit more of the ball than Lindelof. So just on that basis, I'll give him a 7.
Can I just say on Martinez, his passing and his just composure on the ball is superb.
So good.
It just offers so many outs, so many different options in midfield. We've actually got the midfield, in Eriksen, who can, control the ball one touch, back foot, one touch, and then progress it.
He makes so many splitting passes. I know that we didn't play very well midweek, but he did that as well, and some of them are sensational. It's really good to see.
Brilliant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think as well, just on that, when you've got somebody who's comfortable on the ball, who can break the lines and play them balls into your midfielders and into your maybe even your strikers sometimes, I think that gives the opposition another thing to think about and worry about, because usually it's your midfield players that are playing them balls, but with him, he can certainly unlock and break the lines, which is great, and I think that'll obviously help us and benefit us moving forward when we start building and sort of building them relationships with each other a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And obviously we've spoken about this man at length. Luke Shaw, Jamie, out of 10, please, mate.
8. I don't think you can give more than an 8 by law in a 2-1 win. So
by law,
I'm pretty sure it's written into the law somewhere.
I'll have to see this rule book. I need to find that.
Well, if we'd have won 3-1, I'd have been allowed to give him an 8.5, maybe a 9 at a push. But 9s are usually reserved for 4 goals and above. Do you know what I mean? You'll catch up, Mark. I know you're not used to hosting.
Yeah, you're right.
And reactions when we've won. So
yeah, you are. You know what? You are absolutely spot on. I can see Phil laughing there as well. But go on. Thanks,
probably
bro.
an 8. Probably an 8. I think. I've already waxed lyrical about Luke Shaw enough. He didn't really put a foot wrong. He was an attacking threat. He kept them occupied, and he defended well. So you can't really ask for much more from your left back, really.
Yeah, fair points. As we already said, we've already spoken at great length tonight about him. Fantastic performance. Phil, Casemiro and Eriksen, please.
I'm going to go for a 7.5 for Casemiro. I think, it was a mixed bag. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a perfect performance, but I think, he did a lot of good things today, and we've obviously spoke about them. Obviously still finding his feet a little bit in terms of the tempo and the physicality of the English game, but I think, that will certainly come in the next few months. And I think, we've mentioned a bit at length today about, the benefits that we get from him in the team in terms of breaking up the play and all that side of thing, which we've been crying out for a long time. And I think today, we've seen glimpses of that, which I'm sure will, benefit us in the long run. I think Eriksen his passing was a little bit off for me today. There was certain times where he gives cheap possession away in the last couple of games where you don't really expect that from him. But, he always works hard. He was still trying to get forward. He always does, the sort of standard requirements in terms of, putting a shift in and all that. So I'm going to give him a 7. I think he was, worthy of a 7. I don't think he necessarily had one of his better games, but I just think he, just because of his work rate and his application and he's always sort of wanting to get on the ball. That's what I love about him as a player. He doesn't shy away from getting on the ball in tight situations, and he's always there as an option. So for me, I think it was probably just a 7 today for him.
Yeah, fair points. One thing I wanted to say about Casemiro, actually, I forgot to mention it earlier. I think for a player that's new to a totally different league, for a defensive midfielder, I find it's more of an intellectual position. And I think sometimes, especially when he had many games out prior to coming to us, it's one of those where he needs to kind of find his feet a little bit more, sort of study the game a little bit more, and that's why he's had a lot of time sort of working things out. And I think that could be one of the reasons. That's just my theory anyway. I think that's part of it personally, but yeah, anyway, good points, well made. Bruno Fernandes was so much better today. A lot of criticism recently. Had some very poor games recently. Really, really good today, and it was the Bruno Fernandes that we've been so lucky to see so much of, isn't it? But what would you rate him, Fred?
I'd give him. I'd give him a 6. I think the 7's probably a bit too generous, but it was a much better performance. I actually think he could have got a couple of goals. I think Ronaldo actually took a few away from him.
Yep.
One when Ronaldo, if he left it, Bruno would have been onside, and one shot, he would have been a good chance, but Ronaldo got it. And another, I think it was the second half, he took a header away when it would have been a free header for Bruno. So he did the basics very well. Again, having Casemiro in the team, it meant that he could push a bit further up into his more natural positions and fill, get into that space between the opposition's midfield and defence. But nothing spectacular.
Just very quickly, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I find that when Bruno does the basics very well, he has a great game. Sometimes he tries to do a little bit too much, and that's where his downfall can be at times.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree. And again, the City game, it was such a. It seemed everyone's just forgotten about the previous 4 or 5 games where your likes of Bruno's were actually playing quite well. So it was just one anomaly game, that City game. So it was a bit of a dip for everyone. But yeah, hopefully he's back on track. But I'd give him a 6. However, on another day, he could have got a couple of goals, and that would have easily crept up a few points. So yeah.
Fair points. Absolutely right. So last but not least, obviously the front three. As I said, we're not going to include Martial. Hopefully he can make a recovery. I think Erik ten Hag said it needs to wait 24 hours to see if it's too serious or not. So hopefully that's not it. And obviously we spoke about that earlier, but we need him within the squad. I think he's made an excellent contribution in the last few games in particular, obviously. But yeah, moving on to Anthony, and I'll give that to Jamie.
Yeah, I think he was solid. I think he was good. 7. 6.5, 7. I know what you were saying, Mark. You were saying at the start, you were like, oh, you wanted him to seem a bit more direct and beating people. I think he actually does that quite well. We've seen him do it quite a lot. That he likes to get the ball and sort of drive towards the byline, and then he'll look for either a cross, he looks for a shot. Scholesy turned around and said that he's a one-trick pony. If his one trick is continuously score
a goal every game,
that's fine by me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought he was good today. He offers us a new outlet on the right wing, because having a right winger that can cut in on their left foot and shoot from that direction gives us a bit more of a different angle. Playing a right-footed right winger who 9 times out of 10 will cross the ball or try and drive the ball in allows the opposition to sort of mark them out the game.
Is he left-footed though? Fred mentioned this after the first game we saw him against Arsenal. He said that he was worried that he was too left-footed. Do you think that could become a problem?
Potentially. The only thing is that with Cristiano Ronaldo not getting the minutes that he usually would, do we play with attackers that are going to attack balls into the area, or are we more progressive and are we better off trying to play simpler passes and trying to work our way into the box that way? For me, playing with two wingers that operate sort of as inside forwards and can cut in on their strong foot and either drill a shot in or play a pass to Eriksen or Bruno, who are usually hanging around the area there, that seems to work better for us than just lumping balls into the box, which you'd need a right-footed right wing or somebody with a right foot. So it might become a problem for us. You know what I mean? It might become a problem.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that negatively. Obviously,
no. It's a good point.
And whatever.
It's a really good point. It's one of the reasons why you need to have an effective fullback that runs past the winger. Because if Anthony picks the ball up and he's got Dalot running past him, Dalot can put a ball in. That's one of his strengths. So if Anthony can pick up the ball in that sort of final third space and have the option of either cutting in and shooting or playing Dalot in on the overlap, then that gives us a couple of extra avenues to explore. But yeah, I think for me, he was solid. His goal was well taken and it was scored at the perfect time for us. I don't think we can understate how important that was for us, because we've seen time and time again, we concede first and we shrink. We didn't do that. We didn't do that this game. We conceded and carried on overloading the ball. We played really well. We were bright, and Anthony scoring showed us, all right, okay, if we do this, we will score again. And we kept doing it. So, yeah, I think he was one of our better players today. Long may he continue scoring goals.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Did you know he's also very good defensively? I think that's why Ten Hag's thrown him in early. In most games, he does track back, and that's something that we don't usually get from our
only
wingers.
Other attacker that's any good at that is Elanga.
Exactly.
And before that, Dan James. No one else really does.
Exactly. So he's a bit more well-rounded in terms of his offensive and defensive game. So yeah, it definitely benefits, and it's probably a big reason as well why we're seeing the emergence of Dalot as well. Hopefully they can form a good relationship and create a good balance on that right-hand side.
Yeah, absolutely right. Phil, Cristiano Ronaldo.
I'm going to give him a 7. I think obviously came on. He was the match winner. He looked a lot more composed tonight. I think midweek in the Europa League, when he's snatching a little bit of things aren't quite falling for him. You can see he's desperate to score a goal. He got 2 assists on the night, but he probably, on another day, probably could have scored 2 or 3 goals himself. But I think tonight, came on, got that opportunity with Marshall's injury. And I think, obviously the goal made a massive weight lift off his shoulders. I think, he's had a lot of pressure on him. And I'm hoping that'll now sort of, give him the little boost that he's needed. And obviously now if Marshall is injured, he's going to probably play a little bit more than he probably would have been. I think a 7 is probably about fair. He scored. His link-up play was quite good. I thought he looked a little bit more lively. Probably, could have had a couple more opportunities where he could have done a little bit better with his decision making in the final third. But I think obviously when he's not been playing as much as he's used to, you can excuse that a little bit. I think as I say, it's a positive. He's always going to score goals. I think he's that kind of player. No matter what, every striker has little dips in form, and hopefully now he gets a little run in the team, and we can get a little purple patch and start scoring a few goals again.
Yeah, absolutely right. And thank you. And Freddie, I'll give you Marcus Rashford, obviously with an almost another goal. Unfortunate, but he was pretty good tonight. I thought he was going at players quite direct, and his decision making was far better. I think that's my main criticism over the years. But yeah, I thought he was much better tonight. Very good.
Yeah, I'd give him a 6.57. If the goal was given, that'd be a solid 7. And it's such a shame because I think he took the goal so well, and it's something we don't usually associate with Rashford. I'm seeing a new side of him this season, whereby when he's in that one-on-one decision, one-on-one step, he is slotting the goals away. Whereas previously, I think he had that tag of, okay, if he's got time, he usually makes the wrong decision. He's more of an instinctive striker. So it's a real shame. I think the goal was very unfair that was chalked out. But equally, he's having such a great season. I mean, is it 5 goals, 3 assists so far? A brilliant output. So yeah, he just needs to continue doing what he's doing. He looks more confident. He's looking sharper. Even for the
I was so pleased for him. He's been brilliant. So much. It's a completely different contrast.
Yeah,
and it's so good to see.
I was thinking, do you remember last season? I think it was. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before. Where there was a ball. I
struggled to remember 2 weeks ago. So
I know. And he was ball watching, and he didn't chase it down. And we had a chance where if he chased it down, we could have had a shot. And
I do remember.
And whereas today, the goal that was chalked off, he chased that down. Then he chased down. He had the bravery to then, avoid a collision with Pickford, for example. So he seems a completely re-energized player. And obviously with the World Cup coming up, I think that might have a bit to do with it as well, to the benefit of United. So yeah, 6.5, and I'm just happy to see Marcus Rashford back because he's someone we need firing on all cylinders. He represents the club in more ways than one. So yeah. Really happy.
I think Eric absolutely spot on. I think Eric Ten Hag needs to be getting a lot of praise for Rashford. From the moment he came in, he was speaking very highly of him and really kind of nurtured him into this confidence. I think a lot of that is down to Eric Ten Hag personally. I think he's really done wonders with his confidence, and that's why we're seeing the player that we have seen. Thanks for coming on tonight, boys. Always an absolute pleasure, and speak a lot of sense, which helps everyone in the comments and all the viewers, which is great, and helps me learn too, so that's nice. I'm going on holiday next Friday to sunny Spain, so we may not be having too many reactions, but I'm trying to sort them out, so please come back. Oh, shit, next week.
Means that United should win then, at least, if you're not.
Yeah, well, I might not have a job when I come back. So we'll see, but yeah. So I'm trying to get some replacements in, and hopefully we'll have a couple of those. But if not, we'll have the usuals. Obviously, Wayne with Paul Parker. You were doing yours with Luke Steele again.
Yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah, we should be on for this one.
What time's that one on? 10 a.m.
9 a.m. It's an early start on Tuesday for us, you know what I mean? But it's good. So it's a good one. We've got a lot to digest. I need to double check with Wayne that we're definitely still doing it because obviously we didn't do last week for a few reasons. But but fingers crossed we should be, and we've got a lot to dissect if we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a very, very good show. And obviously, of course, we'll have Keen on with Phil and Lee probably next Friday as well. So make sure you tune into those. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for everybody in the comments as well. Load you on Twitter tonight. Come over to YouTube next time. We want to be able to read out your comments. We can't see them in here. And it will always be good to go through those and dissect. But listen, lots to come in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.